Hi, I'm Kayla.
I'm Alyssa.
And this is the Christie Club.
So, what are some good or bad, what are like the worst movie adaptations that you've seen?
As a Percy Jackson fan, that being my childhood, definitely those movies. Mm-hmm. Bad ones is what we're looking at.
You were saying something about Peregrine's Home for...
Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I was a big fan of the books. They made a movie. The vibes were there. But the whole thing with the romantic interest was changed, and I did not like that. But also, the entire ending was rewritten.
Oh, that's nice.
They're like, oh, we don't like this ending. I guess it wasn't dramatic enough. So they wrote an ending that was not in the books at all.
You mean the movie? Oh, I saw that.
The movie. The entire ending is not in the books at all. And I was like, I couldn't get behind it. I was like, what is happening? It was weird. And I feel like a lot of the movies, they don't trust the book.
Really? Yeah.
Like, it's not dramatic enough, which is understandable because you need to be more dramatic in a movie, but then they feel like they can write their own... Same with Percy Jackson. They do this with so many movies. They rewrite the ending because it's not dramatic enough.
But it sucks because, like, you can just make it more dramatic. I mean, you can make the moments dramatic.
I think so.
If the moments are dramatic enough, then the entire thing should be dramatic enough, you know? At least the entire scheme.
Oh, yeah. Percy Jackson totally rewrote the ending and the big bad villain of that book. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, they totally rewrote the ending.
Yeah.
I feel like there's another one where they totally rewrote the ending.
You know what? Actually, in Cards on the Table... They
rewrote the entire ending.
It was so...
It's like it was going all great, and we were like, okay, and then, boom, change after change in just, like, the third half.
Mm-hmm.
Third half? That doesn't make sense. Last bit, yeah. So, I guess this is a thing movies do, and I'm at the moment not a fan of it at all. I think they should just trust in the source material. Yeah, so I think we should go through all the different changes and what we thought of them.
Yes.
Because you hopefully already know the plot at this point.
Yes. Well, I think we should go through it by character.
Ooh, and let's go from least changed to most.
Yeah, okay.
Around.
Or like least sensational, at least.
Sure.
But first, just a note on like the cinematography.
Go for it.
Okay, I like the intro. I remember because we were watching it together. Mm-hmm. We were just like, oh, this is weird, long, but cool. Especially this part. Because they have those, like, typical long intros of, like, old movies where they show you, like, they have to fit in all the credits, or, like, the main credits first. Mm-hmm. And when they did the screenplay, it was, like, screenplay by blank, and it was, like, on an old, like, camera. Like, they had the title on the old camera, and then they, like, closed, like, the lid of the camera or something, and then it disappeared. And I was like, that's cute. And then they went to take a photo later. I think this was later. Of like all the guests at the party. Yeah. And it looked upside down. And I was like, what's up with that? And it's
because of the old camera.
And it was how
that was really cool and creative.
But I was like, that's cool because it might be symbolic or kind of foreshadowing because it's like the nature of the party and the impressions that the characters made.
Yeah, it definitely gives into the unsettling vibe.
Yeah, and it's all about to be turned on its head, really, with like what we're about to discover. But, I mean, I felt like it was kind of weird watching it after knowing the whole plot, you know? So, I don't know. It felt like you kind of...
enjoyed it
you
more?
Kind of, yes, you noticed more things about, like, how they built suspense, and it felt as if you were watching it, as if you had never read the book.
Really?
And I felt like it was just a review of the book, and I was just kind of, I don't know, maybe I was just more sensitive to, like, what they did differently than how the story was actually playing out. So I feel like that kind of separated me a little bit from the experience, from the acting. Yeah,
we can't, like, we can't tell you what it would be like to watch this movie without having read the book or knowing who the murderer was, which would probably change some things.
Yeah, so, like, knowing how the murderer was the whole time, I was like, I would have made certain changes in the portrayal of Dr. Roberts. Like, he seemed too confident, and like I was like, you should make him just like a little bit more suspicious in just his like mannerisms and things. But I mean, there were more things that they kind of changed than, you know, there's more things that I would have kept the same than it would have changed.
Yeah.
Meaning from the book to the screen. Because they changed a lot. They changed certain, even like whole characters, like Colonel Race is gone. He's now Colonel Hughes.
I read somewhere that the guy who played Colonel Race was in a past book, or he's a character that shows up sometimes. And he was in a past episode or movie. And then I think they couldn't get that same actor.
Oh, okay.
So if they just recasted it as a different actor, I mean, it would have worked fine. But if you watched multiple episodes, you'd be like, it's just a different guy, and that would be weird. So they just changed his name and made him a new person.
Okay.
And it's fine, because Colonel Race plays, like, nothing into the story.
It felt like he had more.
He did have
story.
more
he had
to
a
do.
Bigger presence.
He was
left.
there more of the time. He didn't, like, leave. But he still doesn't do much in the story, and I think it's fine.
Yeah, and they also took out most of the, like, racist undertones from his dialogue. Like, I didn't catch...
I feel like they were still...
like, just certain direct ones. Like, especially the one about Despard. He didn't have those lines. So I thought that was a little interesting. And I kind of wanted to look into, like, why they did that, but I was distracted by all the other things that they were doing with the plot.
Okay, so characters that don't change that much, I think Poirot is still very Poirot.
Yeah.
We love David
Suchet.
Yeah, he's so good. And I think he's great in this.
Yeah.
I almost wish there was more of him.
Yes, yeah.
Although, there's one changed plot point that we'll get to more later, but he, like, actively, like, finds some files in the house, and it was a more active thing, and it wasn't really explained very well, I don't think.
There were more tangible
and it wasn't there was tangible evidence that wasn't just psychology, and I didn't feel very Poirot to me, and I wasn't a fan of that.
I think it's totally fine, especially in the movies or television adaptations, because it's a lot more that you have to show.
They're trying to make it more dramatic.
Well, it's a lot more that you have to show rather than tell. So, like, if he picks up a piece of hair, then that's something that you can see. So having something more physical evidence kind of, it's part of his character inherently on the screen. And then also, each time, like, in the book, it'll tell you explicitly, like, he acted more foreign, whatever foreign meant, right?
But you get to see that happen.
So I noticed, like, when Poirot was, like, interviewing, I believe, the doctor, his voice kind of changed, and he was, like, lighter, and he was, like, friendlier.
I didn't.
He wasn't he wasn't serious, like, investigating Poirot. He was just like, oh, of course, like, let's have this interview now, and could you tell me about, like, the things in the room?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great job. You know, you could tell how his mannerisms changed, and I really enjoyed watching that.
But basically, Poirot's the same. And good thing too.
Yes.
I think Miss Oliver is also about the same as in the book and the movie. I think you have a different opinion than me. Okay. But I think the actor who played Miss Oliver was fun, and I think she did a good job, and I liked Miss Oliver in the show.
When it started, I was like, what are they doing with Mrs. Oliver? What is happening? Because I imagined her as being far more satirical. I imagined her voice, at some points, I imagined her voice being like,
I guess she is a little toned down, but I feel like she still has a lot of comedic moments.
Yes.
In the movie.
So in the very beginning, like at the party, it seemed like she was just like a bit stiff. I don't know. Maybe that was just my impression. But later, I absolutely loved her. Especially her expression of, like, pride whenever Poirot would compliment her and say, like, oh, you're making such a great contribution to this investigation. And she'd be like, oh. And she had that smile. I love that smile.
Yeah. I enjoyed her in the show.
I think she could have been a little bit more exaggerated. Just like a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it.
Who changes the least next? Despard?
Major Despard.
Despard's basically the same. We'll get to his biggest change later with Anne.
Aww. Oh, that's his biggest change?
I think so.
I was gonna... Of course. I forgot about say his involvement in the previous murder, he was in an affair with the professor's wife, right? Or did he admit that or no?
Oh,
I didn't catch that entirely.
You're right. So,
I think he was.
I think he was. So they made it, instead of him being, he didn't have anything really to do with her, and she was kind of making it up. He actually did have an affair with her, but it's kind of like...
But they still made him out to be more of a hero.
Yeah, because...
And that's the thing. He became a hero who was not just innocent, he was a hero. Like, he saved her from this raving mad professor who was testing drugs on himself.
Yes.
Some psycho...
Yeah, so, and they're doing that so when he ends up with somebody, you're like, yay, happy couple.
Yeah. So I was
Which was fine.
I was like, bleh. Like, why? You don't need to make him a hero if he's already innocent, but at least, like, I guess the wife isn't branded like some crazy hysterical woman.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
So I think overall, I think it works for him.
Yeah.
Then we have...
Mr. Shaitana. Well, I would say one of the things that they add, just a small thing, is like his hobby is photography.
Yeah, that is a big...
It has a big role, actually, sort of.
Yes, it does. And it comes up a lot.
They really dug into his, like, collector flair.
And that was fine.
And he has this great line. Whenever he goes to take pictures of people... He's all like, oh, may I take a photo? It's my passion! That cracked me up so much.
I don't know. I don't get why it's funny, but it is.
The way he delivered that line was just, it was hilarious.
I think he was more creepy than he was in my brain, but I think that would have me just, I think that was actually in the books. I just didn't.
He didn't strike me as creepy.
Maybe it's not creepy. It's more like
not menacing.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what though? There was something that I noticed with his portraits, like not.
He has some portraits around the house, and they're like quirky. They're kind of fun.
Yeah,
they have his face in like a really weird,
like with a weird like reflection.
Yeah, thing going on. I thought it added to the vibe.
Yes, totally.
He definitely had vibes going.
Vibes, yes. No, because there were several parts where you saw like reflections in that photo, like from that photo, and then you saw that photo being reflected off different surfaces. Like one of them was a reflection in the table across which the detectives are interrogating the suspects, and you see his reflection from that table in almost every interview. Because like one of them was like they were handing over the dagger to like one of the suspects to like inspect, and you saw it was handing it like straight across from the picture. In several establishing shots, it's a longer shot, so you saw the reflection. And also, I noticed
None of these I noticed, by the way.
Sorry, I was taking more notes while we were watching.
Sure.
But I don't know, this kind of gave me the impression that like Mr. Shaitana's presence was always lingering nearby, whether he was watching from like the afterlife, you know. And
I think
kind of just watching the proceedings of the investigation of his own murder.
Yeah, I feel like he did play like a bigger part in this show than he does in the book. Like he comes up more, or you definitely feel him watching over, when in the book you can almost kind of forget he's there. Yeah. Like he's just the murdered guy. Who cares?
Yes, and they show you kind of flashbacks too. Each moment
he gets a lot more flashbacks for sure.
Yeah, when each suspect meets him. So that was another thing. And then also it kind of could have struck me as like symbolic, like it could have represented the fact that he was kind of weighing down on all of the minds of the suspects, because each suspect knew that he had knowledge of their previous like murders and wrongdoings. So he was like always there with them, which I thought was also like really good in that it contributed to the atmosphere of like unease. Yeah.
But anyways, like plot wise, changes to him, he's pretty much the same, all good.
Well, actually, they emphasize his sexuality a lot more.
Yes, which is a theme we're gonna get into across this entire movie.
Yeah.
Like, it comes out again and again with multiple characters. And so it's definitely something they're going for. I'm not sure if I liked it.
I don't know if they did.
I don't think they.
Well.
Yeah, like I feel like there's a way they could have done it that would have been really like well done, but it kind of comes off just like there's this theme going on, but I don't know what they're saying about it at all.
Yeah, they just kind of
it's just a thing.
ran with it. They were like,
yeah, they really ran with it.
Took it and they were like, let's do
and so it is a part of the book. Alyssa you didn't really talking about you in third person.
Totally okay.
You were like, I didn't know if that was in the book, and I remember pointing out it is something that comes up. They emphasize in the book his difference, and kind of imply his sexuality.
I didn't catch that when we read that, but I had read something. I had found like this article online where they like kind of connected the dots, especially in terms of how other people regarded him and treated him, especially Major Despard, and like the comments that he had.
and the people were like, I didn't
pick him, and like just certain things like that.
I think I noticed it when we were reading the book, and the movie definitely leans into that and makes that clear.
Yes.
Which is...
I don't know how I feel about how they went about depicting it, though.
No,
Especially with that one scene towards the beginning with his... it seemed like kind of an intimate little moment with the male server, like, serving drinks, and I was like...
It was not great.
Yeah, so I was like, they could have done, but I don't know. Because, like, with the constraints of, like, the time period, so they're trying to show it in, like, an oblique way, but in doing that, they kind of leaned into some stereotypes that it was like, they probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, another thing that they changed was his motivation.
Mr. Shaitana?
Yes, remember?
What?
Because there's a sleeping draft.
Oh, yes! So, they make this, I don't think this isn't in the book. You're right.
It's not at all in the book.
So, in the movie, he not only was just stabbed, but why was he sleeping? And they try to kind of explain that, and in the book, you just accept it. It's like, it's fine, he was sleeping.
He fell asleep and then sleep.
But in this one, somebody put sleeping draft stuff in his cup, so he would be asleep. And so supposedly so they could murder him, but the twist...
Poirot says, like, no, this was a spontaneous murder. Like,
so why would somebody be able to plan that? It doesn't make sense. And the answer is that he did it himself because he wanted to be murdered.
He arranged his own murder.
Yeah, which, okay... I think you can, I don't think that's what is supposed to happen in the book, but I can understand where they're reading that and why they got that, because I think I remember in one of our past episodes or something, I was like, wait, did he want to be murdered? I think I said something like that, and you definitely get that vibe.
He felt like he was definitely the puppeteer, and he had all the strings in his hands, so why wouldn't he himself make himself a puppet, you know? Why wouldn't this be part of the plan and the design? But I didn't buy it. And part of the explanation was that he tired of life and he wanted
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like that.
Yeah, and then also he wanted to make fools of the police and like expose their incompetence or something.
Yeah, but that
I was like, that's totally bogus. I was like, no, that sounds like something from a Sherlock Holmes novel, because they always like emphasize how like, oh, the police always take credit and they're so incompetent. And I was like, I don't think that's something Shaitana would have done. What does it matter to him what the police look like? You know? Yeah. So I was like, that's bogus.
Should we go on to Superintendent Battle?
Yes. So Superintendent Battle is not actually Battle.
No, I don't know why.
His name is Wheeler. I don't know why either. Maybe because Battle does show up in other novels.
And so they wanted this to be a separate kind of character?
Yes, so maybe that's why they changed him, so that they could kind of change his sexual identity and have, greater leeway there. I guess.
Yeah, so what actually happens in this book is there's a whole nother twist that somebody broke into Shaitana.
Oh yeah, Mr. Shaitana's house.
Shaitana's house, and this is not in the book, and you're like,
and
whatever.
It's random.
Weird.
And I was like, oh, okay.
It is totally random.
I thought they were totally going in a different direction. Like maybe there was something. It was a burglar, and maybe there's another mystery behind this.
Yeah, and so that's like just an added layer. But what happens was that there's these photos that Poirot uses at the end to get, instead of using the window cleaner, he uses, these photos show something about Dr. Roberts. So we're going to get to it in a second. But that they're not actually of Dr. Roberts. They're of Superintendent Wheeler.
And so we discovered that Superintendent Wheeler had broken into the house to try to recover these photographs. Because they revealed the secret of his sexuality. Because
do they straight out say that, or is it like implied?
It's implied.
I think it's implied. I don't think it's said straight out, but it's definitely
definitely implied that he had an affair with Mr. Shaitana,
or somebody and Mr. Shaitana had pictures of it, which is weird. But yeah, that's what's implied. And then Poirot is like. Poirot gives these pictures to Superintendent Wheeler because
because and also I noticed,
protect him. I guess
I noticed that they kind of overemphasized a little bit the fact that he had a wife, that he had kids. That
they did. He's like, I'm a family man a lot.
So that fact would kind of ruin him, I guess. Poirot didn't want to disrupt Wheeler's life. Because that sort of information would have disrupted their life back then.
Yeah, for sure.
And so Poirot, of course, is very understanding.
Yeah, but it also goes into this theme that we saw with Mr. Why can't I say his name? What is it?
Shaitana. Say it whichever way.
It's a part of Shaitana, but it's also now a part of Professor, what am I talking about? Superintendent Wheeler. And then, should we get to Dr. Roberts?
Oh.
While we're on this train, and then end with Anne and Rhoda?
All right, we can do that. Okay. All right, so, well, the first thing that I noticed that was different about Dr. Roberts was that he confessed the Craddock case to Poirot and Superintendent Wheeler, and
that was weird.
I was like, that's weird, and it's really early.
Well, I guess because how we figured out it in the book is we hear from a maid and two random characters, which really wouldn't really work in this in the movie. So I feel like they had to do something to get around that.
And also, there was a whole conversation between the superintendent and Miss Burgess that like revealed it, and
she plays a bigger role than she does in the book.
Well,
pointing that out.
But it's actually it was weird because Dr. Roberts had wanted to keep it hushed up, or else he would have told them. But he just came straight out about it.
It was I wasn't a fan of it.
Yes, but we realized that that's because it's not the full story.
Yeah.
Because he didn't actually have an affair with Mrs. Craddock, but with her husband.
They have a flashback where they make it very clear that it's an affair with Miss Craddock. And we're like, because in the book it's really only implied, but you're not ever 100% sure. Because in this story, that's the cover story, and the actual story is, he had an affair with Mr. Craddock. And then Miss Craddock found out about it.
So he had to kill her. And not the husband.
Yeah. So in this one, he did not kill Mr. Craddock.
Actually, he lies at a certain point when Poirot asks him about playing bridge, and he says, "Oh no, I don't play that much. I don't have a bridge partner or anything." But later, Poirot asks Miss Burgess, and she says, "Oh yes, he has a bridge partner that comes over all the time. They lock the door.
They play with the door locked."
And it turns out to be his lover, Mr. Craddock. Or Mr. Craddock.
Also, it's a plot point that with the secretary.
Oh, yes. One of the clues to his sexuality is that despite having the reputation of a ladies' man, he rejected the advances of his secretary, Miss Burgess.
Yeah.
And I hated that. I was like, because Miss Burgess was such a professional character, in my opinion.
In the book, she definitely is. I don't think that's as emphasized in the movie.
No.
Because it wouldn't serve their point.
They made her a seductress, basically.
Yeah, they did.
For the purpose of switcherooing the whole
character. And so now I think obviously they're going for a theme here with Dr. Roberts,
Superintendent Wheeler, and Mr. Shaitana.
Yeah.
Yes.
I respect they are going for something. I'm not sure if I liked it.
They didn't make a bold statement
about it, yeah.
any sort of activism.
No.
Or any sort
Which
of,
is fine.
Yes, because it is just a murder mystery. But they sensationalized it, sort of.
Yeah.
Probably in a way just to get, the readers caught off guard.
Mm-hmm. Also, I think with Despard, I think they also lean into this theme. Not that Despard is gay, because obviously not, but the fact that he's very much not. I feel like that was something they were trying to emphasize in the way that he doesn't like Mr. Shaitana, and
he's more of like a masculine.
He is a man's man.
And he's like all his writing
and so you're like supposed to like him, I guess. Ugh.
Yeah, at times I guess.
So yeah, that was I think the biggest change is this theme. Well,
but then then you get to Mrs. Lorrimer and Miss Meredith.
Yeah, so start with Miss Lorrimer.
Mrs. Lorrimer, okay. Well,
she didn't poison her husband. She pushed him down some stairs, which is whatever.
Because it's like that doesn't usually kill.
But her daughter saw, and guess who her daughter is? Plot twist.
Miss Meredith.
And Meredith is and like left the house when she saw her mom kill her dad, but then they're like cool now.
And she didn't. And I was like, okay, whatever.
And so
apparently she just never says anything when she sees people murder other people. She's just like, oh, I'm scared. I'm gonna run away. Like, okay.
I understand why they did this, because it is a little weird that Miss Lorrimer would, like, sacrifice herself for Anne when they don't really have a connection. I mean, they do have that one tea date where they talk and, Miss Lorrimer's like, oh. Yeah. But I feel like her being her daughter, they're trying to give a more stronger motivation for Miss Lorrimer trying to sacrifice and admitting to the murder when she didn't do it for Anne. So,
yes, yeah. So
I understood that point. But some of the consequences of that point did not like. Because one thing is Miss Lorrimer doesn't commit suicide.
Yeah, no,
that's not a plot point.
But she doesn't die. Nobody kills her. The doctor doesn't kill her. Nobody kills her. She lives.
Yeah, so, the whole thing with the letters and stuff, that doesn't happen.
They totally.
Which I was like, eh.
Yeah, I was like, I'm glad that she doesn't die, but at the same time,
I don't care. I think I'm all for more deaths always.
Wow, okay.
Sorry. More drama.
Dang.
Also, them having a relationship makes you kind of, I guess, feel for Anne more. When in the book, they really, really point out Anne as, like, you think it's Anne. Obviously, we did.
Yes.
And so she's, like, the big red herring towards Dr. Roberts. And I think the book, it worked really well. When I think you have this relationship between Miss Lorrimer and Anne, and you have more sympathy for Anne because you want this mother-daughter relationship to work out, right? Mm-hmm. And so, in that way, Anne is more sympathetic than she is in the books. In the books, we're like, murder, get her out of here.
Yes.
And in the movie, although she is acting suspicious and things are going on, she's a little more sympathetic, which comes to our next point about Anne and Rhoda.
No.
So...
I don't like this switcheroo.
Me either. At all. So bad. Okay. So what happens?
Okay.
So what happens is...
So the writers try to take all the criminal guilt on Miss Meredith and just shifted it onto Rhoda. Mm-hmm. So they say that Miss Meredith didn't even poison the old lady from the past. It was Rhoda. Poirot's explanation is that Rhoda wanted to keep Anne, like, as a friend, as like a subservient friend, because she's financially dependent on Rhoda.
Yeah, I was doing very minimal research, but I think it may have been implied, because this whole movie has a theme of hidden sexuality, right? Mm-hmm. And that may actually also be a motivation for Rhoda, that she likes Anne and doesn't want her to leave her for Despard.
Oh my gosh, I did not think of that.
I didn't think of it either. But that may be some it's not something that's said, but that may be what Poirot and people are kind of implying.
Interesting.
But that doesn't totally work out, because what happens is, you know the scene where they're in the boat and stuff?
Yeah.
Instead of Anne trying to kill Rhoda to, like, save herself, Rhoda tries to kill Anne.
For, like, practically no reason except that they're mentioning Despard and they have, like, a
and Anne wants to go off with Despard.
Yeah, and she's like,
which
is
is the opposite. Instead of Rhoda being like, ooh, Despard, and Anne being like, meh.
Yeah.
It's switched.
It's
Rhoda's
totally
like,
switched.
meh, and Anne was, like, into Despard.
Uh-huh. It was so... And then when Despard comes to save them,
he goes for Anne, not Rhoda, and Rhoda dies.
Rhoda's dead.
And I didn't like it.
At the end, I was like, good. I'm glad that I don't want to see Rhoda again because she's a terrible friend. But then I was like, no, you can't do that because Rhoda's not supposed to be that character.
Yeah, and I liked that we didn't like Anne, and I liked that.
Yeah.
And I liked putting the blame on her and thinking she's the victim. Because when you get to the end, and you know it's not Anne, right? Because Anne was just about to be murdered by her friend Rhoda, and you know she's got to end up with Despard now, because instead of Rhoda being with Despard now, it's Anne. So annoying. And then also, you know it's not Miss Lorrimer, because, well, she's not dead at this point, but she's got a relationship with Anne. And so, who is it obviously going to be? Dr. Roberts. Like, I think you don't have this red herring anymore.
Yeah.
With Anne. And so because of that, I think it's very easy when it comes to the final revealing scene who it is. Because even though they try to put some suspicion on Superintendent Wheeler, who's one of the sleuths, not one of the people.
One of the murderers.
They're saying he could have done it because he was the first person to see Mr. Shaitana.
Oh, the glass. It was his fingerprints on the glass.
Yeah, so they're saying there's a way he could have done it,
and he
but
broke in the house.
Nobody actually thinks it's him. And I don't like that they throw suspicion on him, because I like trusting that this is the plot has 4 sleuths and 4 murderers, and it's one of those.
Balance.
I really like that that's the system that we're playing in, and when you put suspicion on Superintendent Wheeler, you're breaking that, and I don't like it.
I didn't like seeing Poirot hold him in such fear, I guess, and like use his secret as like his vulnerability, and kind of almost threaten him. I didn't like that. And I didn't notice what his secret was at the time, but now that I know, it definitely doesn't feel right.
Yeah, so they're trying to throw suspicion on him because they don't have Anne as a red herring anymore, but it doesn't work.
And then the reveal was so anticlimactic, and then Dr. Roberts tries to like run away or run at him, and there's nowhere to go. It's like 2 steps and then they stop him. It's like so dumb.
And so I think it's very obvious and easy to guess the murderer.
Yeah.
Because we know it's not Anne anymore, and so it's meh.
It was
in the ending.
It was meh in the ending.
Yeah. And I like Rhoda as a character a lot. Like, I was rooting for her, and I didn't realize that they were changing this stuff up. And so, like, I want Despard to end up with the adventurous one, not the crybaby Anne.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I liked that they kind of, like, foreshadowed the murder on the lake earlier when Mrs. Oliver comes and, like, Rhoda and Anne are, like, stepping off the boat and one of them, like, almost
Yeah, that
falls.
was good.
Like, oh, that's cool.
It was foreshadowing, and that was really nice.
Oh, but the moment when they're having their argument and Anne turns around, like, suddenly, and she's all like, you know what, let's just forget this. Let's just go have a nice day on the lake.
Yeah.
I was like, she's a murderer. But then
and that's what they want you to think.
Yeah.
But I feel like I don't like that switch.
I really wish it were, because that moment was so random.
It was so dramatic. It was really good.
I really wanted to see that come true.
Yeah.
So,
and why would Anne do that anymore if she's not, like, gonna try to murder her friend?
Yeah, so it was, like,
and
really
also,
random.
with Rhoda still going to Miss Oliver and, like, talking to her.
Yeah.
Like, some of the motivations are kind of, like, weirder, and
yeah, so
that whole story doesn't work as well.
Yeah, so they severed that whole, like, secretive Anne, like, story, and, like, halfway through.
Why would they do that? Because they wanted less deaths? Is that why? Because they couldn't have Anne and Miss Lorrimer?
Because they wanted to pull it over on the readers. They wanted to, like, for all the Agatha Christie readers, they wanted to surprise them.
That's a stupid reason. I think that's a stupid reason.
No, I agree. But
so that was the most annoying thing. Like, all the other changes I think I could understand what they were trying to do, but the Anne and Rhoda switch really annoyed me.
yes, no, I agree.
Also, that means she wasn't a murderer, and that means
she's not a murderer at all.
Shaitana got 2 of them wrong, not 3 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 of them wrong, just Despard. He got both Anne and Despard wrong.
That's true.
Which I wasn't a fan of. And then they get to end up together. Blah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I don't like that. But she's still a thief, I guess.
Yeah, but then her thieving isn't as, like... It's fine. Who cares?
Yeah, they don't even, like, address it later. It's like...
Yeah, it's not as an important plot point because she doesn't end up...
She doesn't even...
being dangerous in any way, or... that was, like, it was okay.
Excuse me. I really liked that chapter in the book, though, when they were like, she's a dangerous woman. I was like, yeah!
It was funny.
I liked it.
Because she's so meek, and then but then everyone being
doesn't
like...
suspect her.
And so then her being actually someone capable of murder, I feel very satisfying.
Fear in the hearts of men and women alike.
And then Rhoda is the more confident one, and her just, like... being a murderer is not as satisfactory.
Yeah, I agree. In the later boat scene, there's a swan on the lake, and you know that Poirot's cane is like decorated with a swan, like figurine on top. And I was like, that could be like symbolic for like his awareness of the danger and like his protection of like the innocent. And so when we were watching, of course, it was like, oh, he's gonna protect. It's supposed to be Rhoda, but
I guess he's protecting Anne.
Yeah. So I thought that was a nice little touch, and I'm gonna say that was intentional on their part because it's
say it was intentional.
Makes it more satisfactory in experience.
Do you want to give it an overall rating? We should give it an overall rating as an adaptation and then as a movie. What do you think?
I don't think I can.
You can separate the 2. Yeah, that makes sense.
As an adaptation, out of 5 stars?
Out of 5 stars, I would give it 3.
3. Yeah. I was gonna be like...
It was entertaining enough.
Okay, yeah,
there was good parts.
There were some
parts I didn't mind that they were changing stuff slightly.
I was gonna say 2.5. Like, they shouldn't have changed.
Okay, out of 10, if you were going out of 10, I would definitely go like...
Oh, 10?
5? 2.5 would be 5 out of 10. 2.5 out of 5 would be 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Math.
It was okay. If it's a murder mystery, don't change one of the murderers. Just like, keep them a murderer. I don't know.
Because I'm always for more deaths, more murderers.
Yeah.
That's me. And so there was less deaths, less murders.
And the climax wasn't enough of a climax.
Yeah, and Dr. Roberts wasn't as satisfying.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even if you were looking at it the eyes of the first time, you knew it was him.
Yeah. Well,
and
he wasn't...
And the extra mysteries they add didn't have that much hope. And I guess there's a lot of convolutedness that they were trying to go around with the Lorrimer suicide and letters and stuff.
Yeah.
But I liked the dramatic appeal of that. It was really throwing you around in different places, and I thought that was really fun.
Yes, I agree. Thanks for listening to this episode in which we discussed the TV adaptation for Cards on the Table.
That concludes our first season of The Christie Club.